Good afternoon. Thanks for coming today. We are lucky to have folks from Oakley Home Access. We have Norma Murata and Alex. I don't think I'm going to attempt your last name, okay? But you can do that on your own. They're going to talk about home safety and fall awareness. I'm going to turn it over to them, but just one thing before I do. If there are any questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask them, but just raise your hands so Norma can bring the mic over to you so we can hear you on cable because we're being filmed by Walpole Public Access. Thanks, everybody.
Smile, you're on camera. I forgot about that, even though Debbie reminded me yesterday. Get my good side. Okay, hi everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I'm so happy for us and for all of you that the Council on Aging is open, that you're able to come back and enjoy some of the great programming that they do here in Walpole. As Debbie mentioned, Alex and I are with Oakley Home Access, which is a home modification and adaptive equipment company. My name's Norma, and I am the outreach coordinator, so I mainly talk to people like Debbie and people who work with the older population or anybody who may have mobility impairments. So that could be anybody from an orthopedic surgeon to outpatient physical therapists to people at communities like this, people who are working in organizations like the ALS Association or Cerebral Palsy, and anybody who may be concerned about getting some tips and learning about home safety that they can be done. Alex is an occupational therapist, and he's also a certified aging in place specialist, which is a designation that he earned through the National Association of Home Builders. So when he goes out to do his home safety assessment, he's looking both at the person, their health history, their diagnosis, their prognosis, and their goals as a clinician, but he's also able to look at things like how wide is this stairway and could a stair lift fit in here, and what types of adaptations would work best within the home, and how your mobility works with your environment. So he's got a video presentation here. While he gets started, I've got stuff to hand out for you all to take home. Debbie has extra cards and brochures if you ever need to pick up another one.
All right. Thank you, Norma. I'm going to see if I can do this. Hopefully this comes up on the video as well, so I don't have to hold it the whole time. What do you think? Maybe? All right. As Norma said, my name is Alex, and I'm an occupational therapist, and I'm one of the head assessors for Oakley Home Access. So I'm going to go through this slideshow a little bit, but I really do want it to be an open conversation, so if anytime you have any questions, please just let me know. You know, I do want to know what you're actively doing in your homes for fall prevention, some of the steps that you've taken already. So like Norma said, I have a designation as a certified aging in place specialist from the National Association of Home Builders, and I got my bachelor's and master's from Quinnipiac in Connecticut in occupational therapy. And since I've graduated, my passion has always been a geriatric population with a focus on aging in place, keeping our seniors safe at home, and staying out of congregate care settings if we can. I do still practice a little bit in congregate care settings, you know, to keep my skills sharp, and it's not that it's a bad place, but we do believe that highest quality of life is always going to occur at home. Being in your natural environment is where people generally do thrive the most. Additionally, I do have an executive certificate in home modification provisions. That's right here. And that's another certificate that occupational therapists can get to learn how to assess the home and how to design modifications and remodels specifically for aging in place and for older adults. So I'm very passionate about what I do. I want to add as many initials after my name as possible. So if there's any additional, resources that I can get, I'm certainly going to go out and do that. To give you a little history of Oakley Home Access in general, we started in 2015 when our co-owner, Justin Oakley, saw the need for the service in the community. His background, like mine, is also in skilled nursing. So he was working at a facility in Wakefield, Rhode Island called Scallop Shell. And in that facility, it was a general skilled nursing home. And he had the benefit, because it was a private pay situation, they were able to send their therapists into the homes. Now, often this isn't the case because Medicare doesn't reimburse for it well. So sometimes the therapist will ask you for pictures of your house and kind of design around that. But in that facility, luckily, they were able to send the therapist into the home. And what Justin would do is he'd write down all of his recommendations, spend a little time with the patient, and give it to the family and give it to social services. And what he was finding was that very often people were returning to his facility with the same injury that they landed in there for the first time. Whether that was a fall down the stairs, a second fall inside the bathroom, and that led him to kind of have this idea to start this company where the occupational therapist goes out at no cost. So we take Medicare out of the equation. The occupational therapist comes out, spends an hour in the house, learns about what your diagnosis is, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and then goes from there to assess the home, provide recommendations, but take it one step further as well. Because in his former career, he was giving the assessment and just hoping that that person had somebody handy in their family who could go out and install these grab bars or possibly build him a ramp. Justin took it one step further, and he started this company with his longtime friend from diapers, Mike Vieira, who's our other co-owner, where he goes out as a licensed contractor and master carpenter and actually does all of these modifications as well. So it's all in-house. You get the assessment from the OT at no cost. We make all the recommendations under the moon, tell you what it costs, but we're not coming in as salesmen. We're coming in as educators to tell you this is a potential barrier, this is how we could potentially remedy it, and this is what it would cost. You can do one grab bar in the shower, or you could run through the whole list of items and do everything. There's no pressure on it. So Mike was an established builder in the Southern Rhode Island community, and we really started simple with just grab bars in the shower. That was our bread and butter, because we have a whole album of bad grab bar installations. So where a handy uncle came in, drilled it into the tile, and then somebody ripped all the tile out because it wasn't into a stud or mounted properly. Or even better, grab bars that were placed at a 48-inch height, and it was essentially a pull-up bar. Not good for anybody to use in the shower because it's not at a proper height for them. So Justin and Mike would go out and do all of these installations together. And from there, in 2015, we've expanded from just grab bars. We now offer a whole slew of products, from aluminum modular ramps, both rentals and purchases, a full line of stair lifts, curved, straight stair lifts for rentals and purchases, ceiling lifts. Have you ever seen the ceiling lifts that go from room to room to take somebody out of their bed into their bathroom, into the shower? We offer these for our higher level patients, like spinal cord, traumatic brain injury. But the core of our business still being fall prevention, accessibility, and aging in place. What we do is try and make the most functional modifications conservatively and affordably. We don't want to go into your house and have to rip out your bathroom that you've had for 40 years. We want to take what you have, make a couple of strategic changes, such as grab bars, perhaps a bench, taking the shower doors off, and make that space that you already have more accessible. Because we think one of the biggest barriers to people getting home modifications done is the stress of having carpenters come in for weeks at a time, and that's your only bathroom that's now out of commission. All of our visits and modifications are in one day, so it's not causing any disruption to your daily life. And you're not dealing with contractors who have to go out and order materials. We have a full warehouse that is completely stocked of every item that we offer so that we can do things quickly and efficiently. Now, this here is more tailored to our facilities. It's a little bit of the model, and I know it's probably hard to see, but generally, if somebody was in a facility, say a skilled nursing for a short rehab after a hip replacement or a fall, the general way that our company works is the discharge planners will offer our services to them and say, it's at no cost, so there's no harm, no foul to having an occupational therapist come out and just assess your home and tell you what some barriers may be when you get home. And very often from there, they realize that they do want to make some changes. But from the day that our phone rings from you, we're in the house within 24 to 48 hours to see, as long as that works with your schedule. What we can do, we leave you with a full list of those recommendations that I'll show you. Oops. I have this as a PDF, so it moves a little quickly. So this would be an example of what a home assessment would look like. So on there, we're asking information such as, what is your diagnosis? That's going to be really important for us. I should take this. Just knowing your diagnosis and knowing what your functional presentation looks like. Because my recommendations for somebody who's suffering with Alzheimer's are going to be very different from somebody who's just aging in place and thinking ahead. For instance, we're probably the only stair lift company that would not sell a stair lift to somebody who's ready to write a check. And I've done that on multiple occasions for somebody who's still living at home semi-successfully, living with Alzheimer's dementia. But I can't expect them to perform well with a new piece of equipment that I've just put into their house. They've been going up and down that staircase for 40 years. And they understand that staircase, they know it. So for me to take up half of that staircase with this piece of equipment that on any given day they may not know how to operate, that could cause a fall. So that's not something we're comfortable doing. So very different from calling Acorn's 1-800-STAIRLIFT to come in, and if you write them that check, they're going to put it in. So understanding who the patient is and how this equipment will benefit their functional presentation. We want to know information like height and weight, obviously, to make sure that you're within parameters of any equipment that we recommend. But also, what's your mobility status? How are you transferring? Obviously, everyone in here, I don't see a walker or a cane everywhere, so everyone's transferring and walking very well. But if I went into a house and somebody was, say, using one of the four-wheeled walkers, the rollators, and we wanted to set them up for something, let's say a ramp to go out to the deck, and they wanted a really short ramp because they don't want to take away their patio set. But I know that a four-wheeled walker, those are the really fast ones. They have the brakes on them. So if somebody is to go down a steeper set ramp, they could easily lose control and cause a fall. So maybe I make the recommendation for a longer ramp. Maybe we make the recommendation for a transport chair. So while I'm in the house, it's not that I'm going around and selling things. I'm just kind of going around giving you some education on what I see based on my experience in skilled nursing. Now, in addition, we give you an itemized list of everything that we recommend. So in here, we have the master bathroom. Some of the things that I might have seen in this house were a couple of grab bars would benefit them in the shower, as well as removing and recycling the glass shower doors. So glass shower doors I'll get into later, but that's one of the biggest barriers to somebody's success in the bathroom. And I think it might be a generational thing because I would never want glass shower doors in my bathroom. But a lot of times I get in fights with people, not physical, but why do you want to keep these doors so badly? And they say, well, a curtain, the water's going to be all over the house. And I say, but every house, 75% of the houses I go into have a curtain. It's just a matter of adjusting to it. So that's all things that we'll talk about and explain why glass shower doors can be dangerous for somebody. But it's all itemized and then priced out individually. If I was to design a ramp for you, I'm going to give you a general layout so that there's no surprises. If you have bushes here, I'll draw in your bushes and show you what might have to be removed. But the last thing I want is any surprise. I want people to really understand what we're doing. That's why we always have a big list of similar jobbed pictures because a lot of people are visual learners. I don't want to go in and say, grab bar here, mobile shower head, and a ramp to get you out of the house. I want you to know this is your home. And one of the other bigger barriers that we see to home modifications is people are worried about what it's going to look like. They don't want the handicap house, right? So we're making sure that they really understand what this equipment's going to look like. And on here, another important thing, all assessments are reviewed together by the technicians and the OTs. So my master's degree is in occupational therapy, not in carpentry. So while I go in and I have a great understanding, I'm kind of a DIY master myself, I wouldn't go in and confidently assess a home structurally. So that's why it's important that our therapists and our technicians are always talking to each other to make sure that these bright ideas that I come up with in my head are actually functional and that they actually can happen structurally. For me to go in and say that we're going to remove a wall that can't be removed wouldn't be beneficial to anybody. So it's a really good partnership. Since 6 years ago when it was just Mike and Justin, we now have a whole team of technicians who we say we rescued. 2 of them are master contractors by trade. We said that we rescued them from doing that kind of backbreaking work and brought them into our territory. But they are experts at what they do. They are finished contractors by trade. They're not just somebody who knows how to put a stair lift in. So that ensures that the day of an install, should any surprises come up, they're more than well equipped to handle it. Hopefully anytime that we are installing into tile, the tiles don't start falling off. But these houses are 100 years old, and sometimes that's original tile. So if we have to, we just remedy it. Unexpected things can happen, but it's important to know that we have the team to take care of that. And one of the main things why use Oakley Home Access, just the fact that we're offering a full home safety assessment at no cost. And that, if you don't want us to call you again, we're not going to call you again. We love to just give you that assessment. You put it in your back pocket, and then in 2 years you decide that you're ready for some grab bars, you give us a call. Not coming out as salesmen for sure. We love to see people calling us 5 years later for things that were on the assessment that they didn't know that they wanted, So maybe we just put in a couple grab bars that first time, but then they decided, well, 3 years later I'm going to have my knee replaced and I want to rent a stair lift to get me upstairs. And they pull up the home assessment and I already have all the measurements, I have the pictures, and we can essentially just discharge those technicians. Short of if they change their staircase, as long as nothing's changed in the staircase, we can expedite that whole process. So it's important to know that if you do make a home safety assessment, give me an hour. Give me an hour to really meet you, get to know the home, take all of my pictures, all of my measurements, so that way we can save that whole visit the next time, and we just send out the technicians. Has anybody done any home modifications in their house already? Just thinking for aging in place? Nobody? Nobody has a single grab bar? All right, so we have a grab bar in the bathtub. That's great. Bathrooms are generally going to be one of our biggest fall areas, and it's no surprise as to why, right? So they're confined spaces. They're going to be slippery. They're going to be wet. Let's see. How about just handrails like this going up into your house? Nope. We have another question.
I have this unit that I can press a button. If I have a fall or I need help, I press a button and a voice comes over this unit and asks me what I need, and the help will come.
And what kind, like a 55 plus community, or?
Well, no,
This is something you had installed.
Yeah, I live with my daughter and son-in-law,
Yep.
and they had this installed because sometimes they go away and I'm home alone.
Yeah.
So I have this unit that if I need help, I just press this button and a voice comes over the speaker,
Yep.
and I tell them what's happened and what I need.
I love that.
Yeah.
Here,
That's great.
I'm going to add to that.
The Apple Watch does the same thing.
The Apple Watch does the same thing. So what she was saying is she does have a full device where if a fall was to occur, it would alert, first, not the authorities, but it's going to alert a third party to kind of, generally gauge the situation and decide what's needed. But for some people, that's out of their budget, because I think sometimes those have monthly plans. And as awesome as those are, there's a lot of things we can do more affordably sometimes, such as, that you're going to go take a shower, but you're home alone, calling a loved one and saying, I'm getting in the shower. If I don't call you back in 30 minutes, check on me. This is how much time I allotted for that shower. I'll give you a call back. I know somebody who has a neighbor, a good friend neighbor that they've always looked out for each other. And when she goes to take a shower in the living room, she pulls down the shades. Even if it's the middle of the day, she pulls down the shades, and that's the sign, I'm going to take a shower. In an hour or whatever it is, if those shades aren't put back up, something's wrong. Or just having a loved one at the house when you're taking a shower. But yeah, those are great modifications. And the top of it is having the alert so you can do it independently with minimal help. And the Apple Watches, the Amazon Alexas, and the Google, if for any reason you were on the phone and on the ground, you could alert it to, call for help. I think it's called Alexa Caregiver or Care at Home or something.
You don't even have to alert it. If you don't answer, it will call.
It knows, yeah. Yeah.
Give you 60 seconds.
Yep. Perfect. So yeah, bathroom is where we're seeing a lot of falls. Front stairs are where I see so many falls in skilled nursing, because either they have the old precast concrete steps that have wrought iron that's rotted out 10 years ago, and they hold on to it, but the day that they needed it is when that rust gave out. And it almost feels sturdy, but when you really put your weight into it, that's when it gives out and they end up in the bushes. So we love to come out as a preventative measure to just install some really rock solid railings for people, to show you that we always try and have an option for all budgets, because some people care what it looks like, some people couldn't care less, they just want something safe. So in an environment where money was a barrier, a really simply mounted 4x4 post, rock solid into concrete, connected into the house, and a secondary handrail on it, something nice that they can grab onto instead of the lumber. I see so many houses, people are grabbing on lumber and getting splinters and not using it at all because it's scary to them. So all of our railings always have a secondary handrail. This one's in Walpole. That was one of our first Walpole jobs, and we called it the wall pole. So yeah, that's another one where it was just, we dug some holes, we sunk it into concrete, really, really solid for them. But sometimes, for example, this one was in Lexington, and they get after them with the Historical Society. So it needed to be white, it needed to have vertical pickets, they have a lot of requirements, and we're happy to do that as well. And these aren't the ones that you get at Home Depot that are all plastic on the inside. So they are a little bit more of an expense because they're all aluminum on the inside. The posts are either aluminum or a wooden post with a sleeve over it, depending on the situation. But all of these posts as well are aluminum on the inside and then covered by the vinyl. Because we know what we're doing. We know that we're helping seniors who are going to be pulling on these. They're not decorative rails. They need to be function first, form second. And that's why another reason we always mount this rail, because grabbing onto this piece, that oblong piece, that's like grabbing your bicep. You're not really around it. You don't have a good hold. If it was wet, you could slip off. That's why we want something rounded. I think it's an inch round or inch and a quarter that you can really get a nice hold on. So that's something that we often do preventatively. And I'd say about 10% of the calls that I go to about 4 or 5 evals a day in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. I'd say maybe one of those, maybe one every other day, is preventative, where somebody's coming into the community like you guys are, but realizes that some things are becoming a barrier and they act first. The other 90% is they're already in the hospital, they're in the nursing home, and we're pending for discharge. This ramp has to be in for them to get home. That's 90% of what we do, which, we're happy to do it for them, but money spent on prevention, the OTA doctors, the doctorates that I'm not going to get, that love to do research and not practice, they find that $1 spent on home modifications returns 10x versus going into a facility, going into rehab, and then needing more expensive equipment. So instead of having some preventative measures to stop a fall, instead having the hospital visit, the ramp that you were going to need, the stair lift, a lift system, a Hoyer lift, it's 10x. So prevention is always going to be the cheapest way, and that stands true for pretty much anything. Preventative measures taken on your car, getting your brakes checked, getting your oil done. It's always going to be a bigger return than on when your engine chain blows and now you need a new engine.
Oh, that happened to me.
That happened to me too, and I went to Amco down the street, and it was several $1,000s. Yep. Opposed to getting the regular oil changes, but in my defense, it was a used car, and he said the person before me didn't change the oil because I had my receipts. He said the only way this can happen is if you don't change the oil. So prevention is key. As far as something more serious, like if we ever did have to get into ramping, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because this is what I really talk about with nursing homes and with the facilities where people need it. Whereas you guys, I really want to talk to you about prevention because I think that's more critical. So you guys have like active classes here that you come to get regular exercise and stay active in the community. And that's critical because we want to keep our muscles strong. We want to keep our balance on. Balance is probably the cause of most of this, most of the falls that I see. not so much tripping on the throw rugs. Like everyone talks about tripping on the throw rugs in therapy, and that happens, but it's almost a cliche. More often what I see is somebody walking this way, they change their mind, they go this way, and they fall. It's almost just a freak accident, and there's not a lot that we could have done to stop it. One of the biggest things I see for falls is they call it orthostatic hypotension in the biz. We were just talking about that. It's one of the biggest reasons that people have falls. So in the biz, we call it orthostatic hypotension, and not in the biz, we call it low blood pressure. And it's when you stand up too quickly, your head gets light, the lights shut off, and somebody has a fall. And where's that happening? It's happening first time when we step out of bed in the morning or when we're getting up during the middle of the night. And what's there to catch us? The side table, the nightstand. Or, low blood pressure occurs a lot in the bathroom because of the heat, because of the humidity. And for our folks who take sitting showers, their blood pressure is slowly dropping, and then they stand up from their shower seat and fall in the shower. So one thing I always like to talk about, just a way to prevent it, if I take a seat, because generally we are lying down. Low blood pressure is generally the phenomena of your blood going down into your lower extremities. So what do we need to do? We need to get it back up to our heart, get it back up to our brain. And the way they do that is with your calves. Your calves are the pumps to get the blood that's pooling in your lower extremities back into your system. They tell you on airplanes, don't sit for 4 or 5 hours. And why is that? Because the blood is pooling. In this position, there's no way for that blood to get back up to your heart. So if, for instance, you were getting out of bed, you want to get to the edge of the bed and just sit there for 30 seconds. Deep breaths and pump the calves. If you've ever been in a rehab facility, hopefully not, but if you have, it feels like all the physical therapists and the physical therapist assistants, you look around and what's everybody doing? They're doing this. And are they doing that because it's a huge benefit to your calf muscles? Not really. They're doing it to prevent falls and make sure that when we do get up, that orthostatic hypotension won't kick in and you have a fall. That's almost protecting themselves. But these are exercises that you want to do. You want to go up as high as you can, kicking your legs out, because your quads are the same thing. They're pumps. So you pump up to the next joint and you pump from there. And then when you get to stand up, hopefully, with all things considered, that doesn't happen. So that's one of the biggest reasons that we see falls in the home is I felt dizzy and I had nowhere to go. So for anybody who has those alert systems or something like that, a way to alert somebody that you have fallen, that's fantastic. But there's also things that we can do on our own in the case of a fall. And what I tell my clients a lot, one of the best things you can do is have sturdy objects in your house. So if there's an area where you could be prone to a fall, let's say raised ranch house, and you have 6 steps going up and 6 steps going down. Well, where do people fall? A lot of times they fall on that landing because they're going up the stairs, they take a second, they feel dizzy or they're out of wind and they have a fall on that landing. Opposed to falling down the stairs. It's almost when somebody takes a second to recover, and that's where a fall can happen a lot of times. But if you have a big enough landing, having a good bench there where you could sit down and take a break between the 2 flights of stairs, or in the case that you do fall, using it to help yourself get back up. So getting to your knees first with the bench or chair in front of you and then pushing up from there. Because if you're on the ground and there's nothing around you to pull from, you don't stand a huge chance to get back up, if you have any mobility issues. As far as in the living room or, having a nice chair like this with captain's arms where you can push up from opposed to your favorite rocking chair. If you're trying to get up with the rocking chair, it's not going to happen. So having nice sturdy objects around your house. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions in general on ramps? Like I said, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I'd say the big take-home part of it is we live in New England, and houses sit up on big foundations, and for that reason, just about every one of our houses is going to have at least 2 or 3 steps to get in. We don't live in Florida where houses are on a slab. We have foundations, and we're going to have some steps to get in, and it's just something we have to deal with. And hopefully railings are enough, but in the case that we do need ramping, the higher your house sits up, the longer your ramp has to be. It's like when you go to the bank and you're going through the bank line, back and forth, back and forth. If your house sits 50 inches up in the air, that's what we have to do. We have to zig and zag. You see them at churches, you see them at restaurants, and everyone says, why are these ramps so long? And it's not because people like long ramps, it's because of the codes. So what I try and do when I'm assessing for ramps, getting the slope right for you, making sure that the slope is appropriate for you, and making sure that we land in a good place. You know, we always want to land in the driveway. So that way, for a client who has mobility problems, they're getting out of the passenger side door and they're up the ramp, you know, or transfer into the wheelchair and they're up the ramp. Sometimes, depending on the layout of the house, we have to land in the lawn, but that's not without the conversation of, I think that you should drive your car right on the lawn and exit the car and get right on the ramp. But when we go to Boston and I go all the way up to Salem and Haverhill, and these towns where there's a lot of multifamily houses and they sit basically on the sidewalk, there's nowhere to put a ramp because they're 55 inches up in the air. So I need 55 feet of ramp, and they have a yard about this big. So that's when we get into the conversation of doing exterior stair lifts. A lot of people don't know stair lifts can go outside, but pending that a person is able to do their transfer onto the stair lift. So if somebody was a bilateral amputee, now it's not really an appropriate option for them. But for somebody who can stand up and at least pivot onto that stair lift, it's a great option to get you in the house. They're all rated for New England weather. That's always the question that we get. But at the end of the day, they are machines. Machines need maintenance. Ramps do not. Ramps are foolproof for the most part, short of hitting it with the snowplow. And we get those calls as well. And then there's also platform lifts, you know, so exterior elevators to get somebody into the house. And I'm not going to spend much time on this at all because the Commonwealth of Massachusetts does not allow us to do these. We do them in Rhode Island. We do probably one a week, and it's just a difference with the elevator inspectors. So Massachusetts sees these as elevators, even though they're basically plug and play, but they require it to be inspected every 6 months by an elevator technician, versus Rhode Island just sees them as equipment. So if you ever thought that this would be appropriate, you could always give me a call and I'll give you the resources to somebody who can do it. And I'll give you a ballpark number on what it would cost to make sure they're not taking you for a ride. But we can't, unfortunately, install them here. So does everybody have railings getting to their house? Railings on the stairway. So a nice long flight of stairs. We want to make sure that we do have a nice handrail there. Even if you have like the decorative spindles going all the way up, I love those. They're really pretty. But at the end of the day, you know, you've got a spindle this big that you're putting all of your weight onto for 20, 30 years. I love to see the decorative spindle and then a nice supplementary one into the studs of the wall next to it. Definitely something that I like to see. Here's an example of some conservative bathroom modifications that we make. So this is actually in our showroom in Narragansett, and it shows a bunch of different things that we can do. But tub showers. Most people have a tub shower unless you've made the move to say, I want a walk-in, and you made that renovation. But for the most part, it's either tub shower or really, really small shower stall. You know, the ones that are about as wide as my shoulders. And believe it or not, this is actually easier for somebody with mobility difficulty. But this one here, you can see how we remove glass shower doors because we want to give that customer full access to that shower. If you have sliding doors, you're taking away 50% of your access, versus if you have a hinged door, you're probably taking away 2/3 of your access. Those hinged ones usually aren't even as wide as my shoulders. But if we did have doors here, we'd have a track here. That's another inch, right? And this tub wall is already 15, 16 inches. Then you add another inch for the track, and we divide it in half. So when you're stepping over it and your knee's up, you're basically the width of that opening. So it almost encourages you to contort yourself to step in. And we just want people to do things as naturally as possible. So taking those out of the equation. And what else do shower doors have? They have a nice handle to hold your towel. But what do? We naturally put our hand on it and use it as a grab bar, which it is not. So we like to get rid of those, complement it with a couple of simple grab bars. These are really our two bread and butter grab bars that help most people. And as we place them, there are ADA standards for what we want the grab bars to be placed at. In a residential setting, we throw those out the window because ADA standards are designed to help the average person with a disability. But when I go into a house, I want to help one person with a disability. So I'm really placing these at whatever height they need. You know, somebody who's 6'7" doesn't really fit into ADA, or somebody who's 4'9" because they walk like this doesn't really fit into ADA either. So I've set grab bars down here, I've set them way up higher, or, you know, if I can, I'll just get a 48-inch grab bar and line the whole thing of it. We see it as a blank canvas for sure. A lot of our calls are, we need to rip out the bathroom because I can't get in the tub anymore. And then we educate them about a piece of equipment called a tub transfer bench. And if you say, you know, a short period, you have your hip replaced and you can't step into the tub for 4 to 6 weeks, you can go to Walmart, or we can provide you with one of these tub transfer benches where you sit down on the outside and you slide yourself in. And that just saved you a $10,000 remodel to rip out your cast iron, retile it, you know, 3 weeks with the contractors in the house. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know this exists. But it's an awesome piece of equipment. It costs, you know, relatively short money for what it offers you. A lot of people also don't know we can cut tubs. So if you still want to continue walking into your tub and you don't want to rip everything out, so long as it's a fiberglass tub, we can't cut cast iron or porcelain tubs, but so long as it's fiberglass, we can take down this 16-inch step to about 5 or 6 inches. So that would be, if you can still do one step in the community, if you can go from your deck onto your slider, or if you can go up a curb, stepping into a restaurant or something like that, and you can do that 6-inch step, this is going to be a really good fit for you. It's also a good fit for somebody who has a tub transfer bench and is sitting down, but no longer has the hip mobility to swing their leg up 15 inches. So a lot of times we do them in conjunction. A mobile shower head. For anybody who takes a seated shower, I'm not sure if anybody does, but if you do take a seated shower and you just use the fixed one, it's kind of like being waterboarded. The water's just hitting you in the face. There's not a lot that you can do to control it, short of standing up and trying to pivot it just right. So I always recommend a mobile shower head. You don't have to get one of those big fancy slide bars because then you have to call a plumber and that costs a lot of money. You can simply change the shower head and get a cradle that either we can mount in, or it's just a suction cup, some of them. You just suction it right to the fiberglass and it holds the shower head. Now that's not me endorsing suction cups, because if you have suction cup grab bars, I encourage you to hit burglars with them because they're not meant to keep you up vertical in the shower. They are nice to stabilize, I suppose, but if you look at the really fine print that they printed in white on the white grab bar so you don't read it, it'll say not for weight bearing. It says just for stabilizing, not for weight bearing. And that day that you're using it to stabilize and you need it to weight bear, it's going to come right off. And I've gone into houses and just popped it right off because they say, no, this is really strong, and they shake it like this. I say, well, you don't fall like this. You fall like this and just take it right off. We use all Moen grab bars, so if your concern is what it looks like, and that's a very valid concern for somebody who's coming in and still very active in the community and is entertaining and, you know, has guests to their house, we can match whatever your hardware is. It is definitely an up cost. So whatever that bar costs us to get just gets tacked on to the installation because it doesn't change the installation at all. So you get charged for a standard grab bar plus what the designer fee for that bar is. You know, there's no upcharge or anything. Whatever it costs us to get, we just tack that on. But we can match if you have rounded, if you have brass nickel or chrome, really popular, the oil rub bronze, you know, just matching what you have to make it look like home. Because ultimately it is your home. People who, you know, across from their toilet, they have a nice pretty towel bar. A lot of times we'll take that out, put all the proper mounting in, and then mount a 24-inch grab bar like this with some design on it. And now you can still put your towels on it, but the temptation to grab onto it, if you ever have to, at least it's a grab bar, you know, so it can match really well. They also make grab bars that have like shelves in them. So this is really popular or important for my clients who have MS and Parkinson's, and they will grab anything and everything. You know, if they're standing up and they see the mixing valve, they'll grab that. So I need to put a grab bar right next to it. Or or make sure that everything in that shower is a grab bar. So that tension rod that they had to hold their shampoo, they say that's really important because it holds my shampoo. Well, I'd rather replace that with a grab bar with the shelf to make sure that they're safe in there. Stair lifts, I mean, you've all seen stair lifts on TV. Acorns and Stana, the big guys in the company, they offer great stair lifts. To tell you the truth, we install the same stair lift that you would get from Acorns. When they sell it to the local guys to install it, they stamp it Brooks. But when they sell it, they stamp it Acorns. It's the same exact chair. And that pretty much offered at the same exact price. So the benefit to that being, instead of calling 1-800 Stairlifts, you can call our cell phones. And you don't get routed to a number in Nevada or something like that when it breaks. So we can offer, the same quality product, but with a little bit more local flair. We like to come in, get to know you, create a service plan. In 5 years, maybe we come out and we grease it up a little bit and tune it up for you. Because stair lifts are designed to last as long as cars. We see ones in the community, Harmar is a popular brand, or Acorns, and they're 15, 20 years old, and they call us for a repair. And it's like, well, you paid $1,200 for it 15 years ago. I think you got a pretty good value out of it. And it may be time to consider getting a new one. But they do last. So, if the plan is to stay in your house and you have a Cape style house with that one center staircase nice and straight, but all your bathrooms are upstairs and your bedrooms are all upstairs, for a few $1,000s, you can stay in that house for another 15 years and have a free ride up the, well, not free, you paid for it, but you have a ride up the stairs every time, opposed to relocating. Movers alone are $3,000. We really want to take your house and show you what some home modifications, some conservative home modifications can do to keep you there. Some of the fancier curved ones. So if you have a curved staircase, we can certainly take care of that as well. So we have a couple straight staircases, a couple curved ones. Really minimally intrusive into the staircase. So everybody else, if you have other family members in the house who are going to continue walking up and down the stairs, it's definitely not going to be a problem for them. They should be able to do that just fine, unless you have like a historic house and it's a 24-inch staircase. Any normal house, once that track is all folded up and the chair's all folded up, should be able to use the stairs just fine. And I'm not going to go too far. I'm not going to go into page and lifts and all that. But just to recap, I know I am coming towards the end of my time. The last thing I want to touch on is funding. So even though $1 spent on home modifications is $10 saved in the taxpayer's dollar when somebody switches to Medicaid, nobody's interested in paying for it. Most home modifications, unfortunately, are paid out of pocket. So what we do, and what Norma does especially, is we look into every possible funding source that we can find. So some of those, for example, are national organizations. So somebody who has a diagnosis of MS or Parkinson's or ALS, they have funding that's offered to them. Spinal cord injuries from the Travis Roy grant. We make it our mission to know each and every one of these resources, and in real time, educate the client about them, because most often they don't know that those opportunities exist. In Massachusetts, they have a program called the Home Modification Loan Program. So this is often for more of our catastrophic injuries, where a lot of modifications are needed, but you could certainly use it, for yourself as well to age in place. It is medical based, so you need a prescription and all that, but you could take out up to $50,000 to modify your house as a lien against your home. So there's no payments and no interest, but at the time that you sell that home or transfer the title, whatever you took out goes back to the state. No interest or anything like that. But that's great for somebody who, lives in a home and goes out and has a traumatic brain injury or a spinal cord injury, and that home that they love is no longer accessible to them in so many different ways. So that, having to do a full roll-in shower, a lot of times our conservative ideas don't exactly work anymore. because somebody's transferring into a power wheelchair. So that's where these bigger ticket items come in. And in the case that we do have to do something like that, a full bathroom reno, or creating an addition to put a master bedroom on the first floor, that's not something that we personally do, but we have community partners who specialize in that. So, our community partners are also aging in place specialists. This is all they do. It's not just a general contractor. Their background is in handicap accessible bathrooms. So when we have to pass that off, of course we do. And Norma, do you want to mention, in Rhode Island, we have a really great grant. Unfortunately, it doesn't benefit Massachusetts right now. Yet. So what that grant is they reimburse 50% up to $4,000. So if you have an $8,000 project, you get $4,000 back. If you have a $5,000, you get $2,400 back. If you have $10,000, you get $4,000. So it caps at $4,000. But it's a grant from the state of Rhode Island, so it never has to be paid back. It's a reimbursement. And what they do is it's just an income-based requirement, but the income, opposed to most grants, is very generous. So it's $78,700. So I think I've had a handful of people in 3 years who haven't qualified for it. But what Norma's doing is some hard work to bring that grant to the state of Massachusetts. So I'll let you speak on that quickly as we wrap up.
Yeah, just quickly, I learned about the grant program about a year ago when I came to work for Oakley, and I know Massachusetts is a lot larger in size and population than Rhode Island is, but that doesn't mean we don't have people who need this kind of access to funding. So I spoke to my state rep about it, and Justin Oakley joined me on a call with her. That's Carol Doherty, who's down in Taunton, so Bristol County. And she is a big advocate for older people, for the disabled, for quality of life, and she was very interested in it. So she did what she could do to research the Rhode Island program and how it came about, and she created a bill that is in the legislative session that's ongoing right now to create and fund a similar grant program here in Massachusetts. And it's for people of any age, but it'll work the same way if it gets passed, where you demonstrate a medical need for something to make your home safer or more accessible. Your doctor or social worker gives documentation just saying that, and then you apply for that grant. This is my tax return from last year, and they say, okay, go for it. And we're able to work with them to do those modifications or equipment, and then you're getting half of whatever whatever the outlay for that modification was. Do I need to bring the microphone to anybody for any I know we'll definitely ask Alex about what you asked me earlier, but any other questions before we?
Yeah, so we will, and just wrap up. Like I said, we service all of Massachusetts. We service all of Rhode Island. I personally do all of the evals for Massachusetts, and Justin does most of them for Rhode Island, along with our other co-owner, Mike Vieira, who is a certified aging in place specialist. So more than qualified to go out and do those assessments, and he knows this business inside and out. We also service Eastern Connecticut, so east of 395, essentially. We operate there out of our Narragansett location. And we're shopping a new location here. We were in Walpole. I'm not sure if Norma mentioned that, but for 2 years, my office and then Norma's office, as she joined, was on Production Road,
Right down the street.
over by the prison. And we loved it there, but during COVID, we did downsize a little bit just to rein everything in. And it was a little too big for our needs anyways. So we're shopping a new location. We hope to be in Walpole again.
Yeah.
But if not, we'll be...
a nice showroom like the one we have in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Where people can come in and look at one of those bathrooms. We have almost a whole fake bathroom, and
Right.
or try the stair lift, or see how the ramps are put together, and any of the other equipment that we do.
Yeah.
I'll just add on rentals. I had mentioned to you, sometimes people only need that ramp for the summer. They're staying, a relative is coming to stay, or they're recovering from a surgery and they're going to need it while they recover, but eventually they'll be walking independently again. So if it's something that's, we're not building a wooden ramp that's going to be attached to your house and that you had to get a permit for, we bring it in, and when you're back up and running, we take it out. So
Yep, literally no damage to your house.
And when somebody has a temporary situation to rent a ramp or a stair lift, and they're not sure how long they're going to need it, and they're not really sure what the outcome of their condition is going to be, Alex will always walk you through, here's what the options are with rental, here's what the options are with purchase, which one would make more sense for you, what if you did have to keep it for a year?
Yep.
you're going to pay to rent it for a year. It might be less to buy it. And then at the end, if it's you still need us to come and take it out, we do all that too. These are all technical details that you don't need to know. But for general home safety, when Alex comes in to look at your home, of course, he's going to talk about anything that you're interested in, and the bathroom is the focus most of the time, but really any other things that he might pick up on, just simple things like lighting or, putting something, like he said, furniture placement so that when you do have to stop and take a break, or where are you grabbing the wall when you go up the stairs, for
Yep.
steadiness, what could you put there to make that a little easier? So it's not even always things that we would have to do. I know we were talking before you got here, Alex. I'm sorry, and I didn't ask your name.
Lynn.
So Lynn has had a more than one incident of orthostatic hypotension and blacks out in the bathroom. So she was asking about cushioning the floor because she's not, it wasn't a fall, it wasn't a trip and fall, but just going to the ground and being out of it. So I was thinking about, and they had thought of this themselves, the foam puzzle mats, but the ones that have the frame edge, but that it's a bevel, so that it's not a sharp edge.
Something to trip on.
Right.
Yeah.
So what if they edged out the foam with those slanted edges, and then maybe did something underneath it, double-sided tape to secure? Is it a tile floor in your bathroom?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't hate the idea of it. I think that's a good responsive technique. Of course, we want to be preventative. So do you stand for your shower?
We have a separate shower stall from the jacuzzi tub,
Okay.
so, yeah.
So the falls are more happening outside the shower.
Oh, definitely.
At night.
Totally.
Yeah.
She's gotten up to go to the bathroom, so.
Yeah. So I'd say,
Middle of the night to get up to go to the bathroom.
yeah.
Pass out.
Yeah, so I'd say more so taking that time, like we were talking about. Even though usually when you wake up in the middle of the night, it's an emergency, but trying to find a second to take that time.
Those leg squeezes and raises.
Yeah, or maybe in between where you sleep and where the bathroom is, having a place to take a break if you had to. I definitely don't hate the idea of that, but if we put something too soft, like how are we going to respond to that? One of the biggest things we do in nursing homes is once somebody's doing really well with their balance, we put them on a soft, cushy surface, and that throws them all off again. So we don't want to throw you off,
I've got good balance.
Yeah.
When I use my electric toothbrush every night, I balance on one foot for 30 seconds and then balance on the other.
Hey, I like that.
I should
Yeah.
start doing that.
I do it every single night.
Yeah. So I definitely don't hate the idea of doing something padded if it's a continued problem. I'd say maybe see how you do with just taking a little extra time, making sure you have the right lighting and stuff like that.
It's just she's in a blood thinner. We're concerned about the syncope that all of a sudden she has a head bleed. It really could be fatal.
Oh,
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
we're playing games here.
a big
So
problem.
Yeah.
that's why I thought of that foam rubber. It would be a cushion, at least not a ceramic tile.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think that might be a good idea. Just how is it going to work when it gets wet, like stuff like that. I almost want it to be something you can throw in at night, and then during the day, take it away. Yeah.
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 I mean, it's off, the master bedroom has the master bath.
Mm-hmm.
It's just our bathroom.
Nobody goes
sees
in it,
so I don't really care.
Yeah. You go old style and put carpeting in the bathroom. I see that a lot. Yeah.
Clean up.
Oh yeah, when it gets wet, it's not made for it. But I see it a lot. Oh yeah, avocado green and full wall-to-wall carpet.
Like an indoor-outdoor carpeting.
Oh,
Oh no, it was
regular rug.
it was regular shag rug.
Yeah, so it's thicker.
Yeah. I don't think it was for safety reasons. I think that was just the style.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, many moons ago. But
When we've looked, we haven't seen that edging.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. I've seen it on wherever, not in person. Hi.
I have a sister that's.
Yeah, well, if anyone's still online, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to send my card to the senior center, and hopefully maybe they can do an email blast or something. So that way you have my phone number and my email. So if any other questions come up, I'd love to talk with you. But thank you all so much.
Got to stay